Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another of our JBDC's Virtual Biz Zone. My name is Dana Bennett, your host for this session, and this time slot is currently facilitated by the JBDC's Technical Services Department, responsible for assisting clients with their product development needs from concept to market. So since the inception of the webinars, we have been dissecting numerous topics all aligned towards assisting MSMEs to develop successful businesses and to maintain them. So we have explored topics such as convenient catering during COVID, design thinking, and last week we covered managing operational efficiency for MSMEs. So this week we will be looking at the power of the logo, a critical part of the brand story, and that should definitely be an interesting one. Our presenter this week is Mr. Jason Delevante, and Mr. Delevante is a graphic designer at the JBDC with a total of 20 years experience in the areas of digital prepress and graphic design. He currently provides product development support to the micro and small business sector, and his main responsibility is to provide visual communication support to manufacturers who are preparing their brand for the local and export market. He has presented on several occasions on packaging and branding during JBDC's workshops, so he's no stranger to this platform. He is also a graduate of the Enamani College of the Visual and Performing Arts with a BSc in Visual Communication. So just before I hand over to our expert today, I'm just going to remind you that once he has presented, we will be facilitating questions at the end of his presentation. So at that time, you can click on the icon indicating that you want to raise your hand or type your question in the chat. And at that time, we will certainly acknowledge you. So without any further delay, over to our expert today, Mr. Jason Delevante. Jason, over to you.
Hello and welcome.
Go ahead, Jason, we're hearing you.
Well, hello and welcome to the presentation, The Power of the Logo. What I'll do today is to try and give you an overview of the importance of it. What is its power in what does it do, or what it will do for your brand, and what the logo represents in terms of brand communication. The presentation will last for an hour, or within an hour. We will cover some topics that would represent those aspects of a logo that business owners and people starting businesses should be aware of. So as we proceed, we'll start by examining what a logo is. By dictionary terms, it's a logo symbol or other is a symbol or other small design adopted by organizations to identify products, uniforms, vehicles, and general branding. And that's a dictionary meaning. Now, what really a logo is, it becomes the face of the company. It's a marker brand that represents the story and product and or services that the business owner wants to represent. By that mark, you'll be identified, and through that mark, you'll develop what one would, the relationship between your clientele. That's your corporate image. Now, a logo does not promise to establish a corporate image immediately. A logo basically is an associative image that will allow you to be identified in the marketplace by your target group. And accordingly, over time, that brand or that image will be burned into the minds and images of the public. Along with your products and customer service over time, then your corporate image will be identified, or that relationship over time that you will gather. A logo is mainly to identify your brand. Identify as your mark and as the symbol that over time, as I said earlier, will represent your company and your promise for good service and the relationship later on that you'll develop. Now, there are some key things that a designer like myself and a business owner need to understand. We need to come to an understanding of the environment in which the logo will be seen, who the brand competitors are, what colors and symbols are already owned by established competition. How can we differentiate the logo so business stands out in the crowd? There is an understanding that a business owner has to have a very intimate understanding of what their business is about, what it is they want to enter the market as. Brand positioning, what do your services and products promise to the customer? And that has to be conveyed to the designer. So in these four bullet points, it is important for a business owner to at least be able to convey this to a designer. In doing so, one can create a design brief, which consists of a brief overview of what the company is about, what the product is, the target group, and in that, any elements, colors, images that the business owner would want to see in their logo. Now, from that information, that is where my job would be to interpret that information and produce a logo or symbol that is in keeping with this. Now, a logo isn't a logo is not an illustration. It's not going to attempt to tell the full story, brand story. What it will do is extrapolate images from the brand story that are identifiable and that can be used to represent an effective logo that quickly can tell what your primary offerings are. Now, why is the logo important? When you picture a business in your mind, these days, the first image that comes to mind when a name is associated is the logo. In business today, the value of a company is basically its brand. Not items laying on the floor, not its physical holdings, but what that company has developed with its consumers over time. That is the relationship that they have developed over the years. Moves from the company's physical holdings to the brand, the name it has made, and how the logo now comes to represent that. So the value now becomes visual. It moves from tangible to visual. And in modern business, we identify a brand primarily by the logo it presents. The logo becomes the first tier representation of that company. When you see a logo, you are familiar with the service you remember, having interacted with that business and having bought their services and their goods, then your experience is left for you to identify. The next identifying interaction would be their logo or mark. And if branded properly, this can be an ongoing conversation between the consumer and or user of services and the company itself. Now, we should be able to look at a logo, I'd say in less than 8 to 10 seconds, and get some reasonable understanding of what the company is about. The decision that a consumer will make in those 10 seconds will consist primarily of what the logo is representing. Those elements, colors, the name, combined with the image, will form the basis on which the customer base will come to identify your product. And to remember it, key is to remember it. So services and experiences that they may have been through in the past will also be associated with the brand, but the decision to engage the product and or service again will be stimulated by an effective logo and thusly the effective branding. That is the repetition of that logo throughout its brand and products. It is always important to create a good first impression. When entering a market, it is key that market research is done. So to position your logo or your brand, or to find the best logo, is to position your business in that marketplace. Now, in positioning the business, one has to look at the competitive market, if there are any similar offerings being made by companies, and what it is that you're offering, what is it you're bringing to the table, as well as is there anything new, original, and competitive that customers will benefit from. The logo, therefore, on entering a market would have to seek to make a presence and an impact in becoming a part of that marketplace. It is important to note that logos, though they're simple, if properly used, the target group will be able to associate with the elements within them. That is why it's important to do market research to understand your clientele, who you're catering to, and what it is that will appeal to them. And it is important to work with a designer. I can't stress enough how important it is to work with a designer. There are many platforms available online now that allows people to design logos and perhaps to some effectivity. But at the same time, years of experience and being trained in design can help to put that edge, that more effective application to the design of the logo. Now, if you're able to present a design brief that covers, as mentioned earlier, a design brief that covers all the elements that are necessary for a designer to interpret, then it is more plausible, and we'll get there quicker. It is more plausible that between the business owner and the designer, we'll come up with a design quickly that is efficient and that the impression that wants to be made is made. The finish is important. The technical aspects of saving, designing, and providing formats for the client is important. As in the reproduction of this logo has to be consistent. This is where the technical understanding of file formats and how to save logos that they can work cross-platform, and that printers also can get a sharp, high-resolution image that can consistently be reproduced at high quality. Now, this time I'm going to, of course, give an example of how brand identity can be communicated through the elements of that logo, the fonts, the images, the colors that are used. And of course, many of you might have already been exposed to logos that are international and popular. And in this case, the communication is going to be demonstrated by examining the Amazon logo. The company wanted to present a positive image with the idea of customer service being its major offering, and of course, the moving of items by the internet, the sales of items by the internet. And the name Amazon has now become synonymous with the ease of online shopping. But in the process of design, the word Amazon, which has the letters A and Z in it, becomes the representation that they have products and provide anything from A to Z. Now, the word Amazon may seem as simple as the font represented, but with adding that arrow from A to Z gives you an understanding of the diverse and wide categories of items that you can get on Amazon. Also, the arrow doubles up as a smile, which is a subliminal image that allows you to feel a friendly touch. It's more inviting, and then it beckons to the customer service aspect and the satisfaction that the customer is expected to experience. Another example is the promise of home security for you and the family and your family through the National Housing Trust logo. Now, I chose this logo, of course, because I wanted to demonstrate that locally, there are very strong logos and industries that are based on good branding and have stood the test of time over the years. Now, I selected the National Housing Trust logo as an example of how elements can come together to perfectly describe what the trust is about and how it provides the consumers and its target market with the promise of security. The opportunity to own a home and what it means to the individual and their families, as you will see in this image here. Contained within this image is the outline or silhouette of a house, or what looks to be a covered roof. And within that are images of what seems to be male and female, perhaps persons embraced within that image. Very simple, very clean. It carries a simple shape. It is easily reproduced. There's only two colors, white and blue, which means that in reproduction and printing, it's going to cost less. But at the same time, the design is so strong that less colors doesn't necessarily mean that it's not conveying the message. Sometimes some of the most effective logos have been taken from a process of many elements and stripped down to a shape that becomes more identifiable and more user-friendly in the marketplace, as is the case here with the National Housing Trust logo. So having established that or said all that, I would like to suggest some logo tips and tricks that will allow you to understand what is necessary in making a logo successful. And by doing so, you'll be better able to convey to a designer what it is you actually want them to design. We have a saying in graphic design, garbage in, garbage out. A designer's job basically is to take your ideas and interpret it into an image that is indicative of your ideas. If you're clear on your ideas and can convey them, then the process of getting the most effective logo or any other design, including the collateral materials, will be a process that is shorter, quicker, and more effective. So here are a few ideas that you may want to consider in understanding what makes a good logo. This infographic will give you a quick overview of some of the things I believe and agree in making a logo more effective. And these are the benchmark ideas which we use here at the JBDC, the visual communications team, very trained and proficient in understanding how these elements work. And it is important that there's an understanding between the client and the designer, that we both have to come to an agreement and understanding, both technically and in case of the client, there has to be an understanding that there are elements and things that you may want. If they are not conducive to reproductive, effective reproduction, then sometimes we have to advise the client that your idea has to be simplified into a mark. And that discussion is an important one that takes place between ourselves and our clients, thus resulting in some of the logos that have been produced thus far from us. As it simply states, be enticing. Your logo must appeal to the target audience. In this example, given a single man in his 20s, working full-time high school education, loves sports and adventure. And two examples are given, where one is fun and cute and one is masculine and powerful, as in the Red Bull logo. Uniqueness. Logo must be memorable. Avoid cliche designs, avoid muted colors. And it is important to understand your target group. What memorable becomes that communication between your target audience and that element and/or color that is going to pop or bring their attention. Be timeless. Make your logo eternally relevant. And by doing so, it is important to choose a name that speaks to the company's vision this year and 10 years from now. It must become the word or vision that allows the designer to choose a mark or an emblem that is going to back it up. The images and fonts or typefaces that are used also will, over time, because of cultural differences and changes over time, one wouldn't want to use fonts that are specific to single periods in time and history. That is why sans serif fonts, so those are fonts that are clean and modern, does not have serifs or feet as in Times New Roman, Times Romans, and so on. May stand the test of time because as a result of being more graphic and more clean, and it becomes more adaptable. It is important to know that your competitors that are already on the market are more established than you are. Your job is not to reinvent the wheel, but to convince the marketplace that what you're offering is where there should be. There's an advantage to coming in on a market young and fresh. It's an opportunity to not just wait on the existing market, but for you to dictate to consumers what is the next trend, what is convincing them how it is to or how it is your product will lend to their experience. Right? So to be bold and original, to think outside of the box, of course, is where you want to channel your corporate image and logo design. Of course, simplicity also becomes a major part of reproduction, as in the brand's ability to be adapted to different mediums, to audiovisual communication, to print, TV, and to be branded onto products is important. So a logo that is simple or has basic shapes, then those logos tend to be able to be adaptable. A basic outline or format for a logo or shape is important. And having established that the consistency, reproducing that logo in the right color and right shades each time is going to give a more effective presentation. And a company that is consistent will be more successful in burning that image into the minds of consumers over time as the relationship with your consumers develop. So consistency also is important in a logo, and that is the reproduction process. The logo's ability to be reproduced across platforms. The use of white space, that area around the logo. Sometimes in developing a logo, you might want to, a designer might suggest to you, or in the presentation of the logo, give you additional information about logo usage, how to use it, where to put it, where to position it, how to place it against other information or brands in an effective way that will allow it to etch out a space for itself. The use of white space or areas around the logo allows the logo to sit in a comfortable place where it cannot be shrouded or should not look as though it is competing for space. Again, I mentioned earlier the outline or shape of a logo. Circular, square, triangle. Basic but strong geometric shapes usually result in, again, easy placement and application to any format. And again, using fonts that convey the nature of the product and our services. In this case, Disney would be fun and creative, and not formal. And it's important, color, very, very important. Color is, I would say, 50% of a logo, 50% of the success of a logo. For food companies and people producing food items, reds, yellows, orange, those colors that are associated with food and the ingredients is always key to use or to consider. If we're talking about strong representation of color, blacks, corporate blues would represent strength and consistency. Color is very important in a cultural format as well, because colors in some countries may represent something different in another country. So it is important, again, to know your market and to do research to recognize what color means to your clientele and target group. All right, so we're going to move on to how to protect the logo or power of your logo. Designing a logo is one thing. Coming to an understanding with a designer and coming up with the best logo possible that represents your company is vastly important. But none of this is going to be worthwhile unless you look after your intellectual property rights. That is the legal aspects of copywriting and protecting this logo from plagiarism and misuse in the marketplace. So intellectual property is much like one's reputation. And there is law that represents protection or legal representation in Jamaica. In Jamaica, the trademark protection is governed by the Trademarks Act of 1999, which came into effect from 2001. The Act grants the registered proprietor of a trademark the right to exclusive use and benefit of the mark within Jamaica. In a nutshell, Jamaica protects trademarks and logos, and it's important to familiarize yourself with the legal aspects that are available for business owners and designers. Any intellectual property basically is any brainchild or idea that can be protected by this act. The use of this mark, of course, without the owner's consent can lead to legal action. A cease and desist letter and the commencement of court proceedings, which is serious business. You have to understand that in protecting your brand and logo, you're talking about your company's worth, the brand identity, and the relationship that you have formed with your clientele over time. Basically outlines the value of your company. And plagiarism is a big threat to stripping a company of all its work and all its creative and intellectual property rights and the right to perform in the marketplace in a fair environment that allows and protects the intellectual property rights of any business owner. And I have put together some general steps in getting these rights protected here in Jamaica. Of course, our premier intellectual property rights office is Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, that's JIPO. JIPO offers services for copyright and registered trademark acts. It seeks to protect, first to identify your original idea and/or image, brand, product, and to run it through a database to see if there's any existing product and/or similar product and/or services that exist. Now, in copywriting, Jamaica Intellectual Property will also provide you a certificate that works in Jamaica that legitimizes the process of copyright. And by doing so, the investment is worth it. After approval, and by approval, it means that your submission will be gazetted and there will be a period of time to wait for anyone to contest or to say that that mark under our logo is not in contradiction to any previous Copyright Act. Then you will be offered a certificate of registration that gives you 10 years coverage to use that logo. Of course, after 10 years, you're able to renew it. And then periods of 10 years once upon approval. You can decide to renew or not. I don't see why you should not renew. But again, it may cost a fee. And it's nominal compared to what the protection you're getting. So the availability search, completion of a TM1 form by the requisite fee and submitting application and fees to the registrar. The registrar will examine whether the application satisfies the requirements of the Act and also conduct a search to determine whether the mark is similar or identical to any other. And here I mentioned earlier that Jamaica Intellectual Property Office will run these checks and balances before approving your logo mark or trademark for copyright infringement. Also, you may want to consider your design brief as part of your submission. Your ideas that follow this logo will also give you an understanding of whether or not the image itself by itself is enough protection. There are some nuances between small elements in logos that may differentiate them. If it's too close, JIPO will advise that it is too close. Usually if colors are similar, names or shapes and images are similar, you will be advised accordingly. But it's important to understand that this process over time is to identify the mark and to protect it in a way that will allow you the earnings and of your company's performance in the market. And that brand and mark will be protected over time. And the intellectual property, which is the intellect behind the development of the product or service, though conveyed in the logo, can also itself be submitted for intellectual property rights. That is to protect the idea or brainchild of any product or idea. Expression, artistic expression, artistic license, as well as the right to own that idea. And with that said, I hope I've covered enough in this presentation so far that everyone is able to understand best how to approach designing a logo and choosing a mark for their business. Of course, the JBDC offers visual communication services that in the visual communications department at the IRC, Marcus Garvey Drive, Garmix. A complete approach to branding. The services would include logo design, of course, which adapted to collateral materials, business cards, brochure, letterheads, and 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 brands and tags. Though we don't offer, we offer some minimal prototyping in agreement with the client, but our main business is to get you a corporate image or branding or brand you, get you ready for the marketplace. We operate at a very minimal cost. It's made affordable for small business people, and it is to encourage the legitimization of business, to make it affordable and accessible, and that these types of knowledge and expertise can be afforded a small business person with a low budget. We design at $1,900 an hour, and we have fixed rates for individual items. And based on the nature of the client's product and our idea, we offer consultation, which is free. And from the consultation, we can determine what level of intervention is needed, what package we can afford you. And our main aim is not to turn away any client, but to work within the budget and ideas that the client brings to us. So I would like to thank everybody for joining. And at this point, I would like to turn over to question and answer. Before doing that, there are some sources listed here. If you want to check it out for yourself, there are some sources listed here online that you can do additional research that I have shared and made available in this presentation, as is on screen right now. And it's time now for questions and answers. If there are any, please feel free to go ahead.
All right, Jason, thank you very much for your presentation. Some pointers that I noticed that you covered includes the logo. It's best to get a professional designer. It's best to set up a design brief, and you can use that to basically let your designer know the ideas that you have in mind. And also, it's very important, the logo itself is very important towards communicating an important brand message, and as well as colors. Also, the logo is very important towards helping to identify your brand in the marketplace, and it adds value to our company. I am not seeing any questions right now from anybody. So,
Dana, there's a question from Vanessa Powell in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right, so Vanessa Powell is asking, how do I get an appointment for a consultation for logo development services?
Give us a call. JBDC has 2 offices, one at 14 Camp Road, and the technical team is located at Marcus Garvey Drive, Garmix Free Zone. You basically give contact a designer, express your desire to access our services, and you direct it to the visual communications department. And from there, we can discuss a meeting time where you can come in and sit with us. The consultation is free. At this time during COVID, we just require that you wear a mask, and that when we can schedule an appointment for you, we will have the necessary hand sanitizers and so on. So just to get the COVID thing out of the way, that is implemented and is now part of how we will interface with you. Now we have a seating area here where we can sit and discuss your ideas about a logo. Yourself and the officer, design officer or assigned officer will negotiate with you when it's best to come in, time and date, and what it is you wish to cover. And of course, if you're bringing a product, you know, a prototype would be nice. Anything that you may have in terms of ideas, containers, examples of what it is you're looking for will definitely help that interaction. We can come up with something quickly. You're expected to provide information about your business, address, telephone number, your name. A form will be done to legitimize you in the system and to put you in a work format or log you into the work process. 50% deposit is also required. That 50% deposit will be paid before any work is started. On completion, you pay the rest. Now, completion means that we have designed and are giving you a service that you're pleased with, and that when that process is complete, you pay the balance, remaining balance. Of course, price will be discussed. We take each individual customized packages because people may have budgets, people may have different products. So the consultation basically is to establish where in that margin of expenditure we can provide the service to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason.
Thanks,
We
Dave.
have some more questions that have come up in the chat. Okay, Andre Samuels is asking, if I need a design for a label for honey products, why do I need to consult the food nutrition first?
Well, honey is by itself something that is a stable and singular ingredient. However, the food consultation team or the food specialists here will not only be examining the fact that you have honey, but the way in which it is packaged, its appearance, and other technical aspects of the product. Now, I, the designer, the graphic artist, will put a label on a container or a package or help you to design the look of the product. But the product and what is inside the product, the actual product, if it is honey, then the food experts now can advise you not only on what you bring in, but what is also recommended by the Bureau of Standards, the Jamaica Bureau of Standards. They have standards by which we abide by, and we encourage our clients to follow them. It is to protect the consumer as well as the business owner, and to make sure that your product basically is presented correctly, that where you prepare it and the end product is able to be consumed by your consumers without harm. So we work cohesively together. We work cohesively as a team to bring that product, not just a face to it, but also to provide the technical aspects of what the food or content is. So we are sure that when food comes in, if it is in a small meeting to establish that your product is presented or presentable and is safe, and that and to make you aware of what is necessary for that product to be on the market, then that is the purpose of why a food technician would be called in.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Jason. I am seeing where Kadian Taylor, I guess she wants a bit more clarification regarding coming in for consultations versus virtual meetings.
Oh, well, consultation, if you're unable to come in, it is best sometimes to see prototypes, bottles, containers, and so on, for us to get an actual measurement or feel of a containment that we will brand. But An initial meeting, of course, can be done online through different mediums. We do accept and practice those mediums for meetings. So it's just to make the initial call and to express your ability. If you're not able to come in, if you just don't want to come in, if you're out of town and would like to have a online meeting, or using whatever medium is available to both parties, then that is also a part of consultation.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Jason. Chandris Foster is asking, hold on 1 second. Yes. Chandris Foster is asking, is it true we should not mix words and symbols to form the logo? She is stating as well that her business is called G-Weed Cosmetics. So for her logo, the W was a symbol mixed in with the word. So what's your opinion on that, Jason?
There's no rule about that. In my experience, sometimes the word forms the logo. Sometimes within the word, the image is formed within the text itself. The question is, does it work? And is it readable? The test is always in the eating of the pudding. And it's basically if you are getting feedback from your clientele, or people are mispronouncing it, or not recognizing what the symbol is, then you may want to re-examine if the wording is supporting the image and the image is supporting the wording. Sometimes they work interconnectively. Sometimes one is stronger than the other. But what is most important is that the feedback from the clientele. Ask somebody randomly to look at the logo and tell you what they think of it and what does it say. Literally, read the words. If they're unable to do so or is struggling to do so, they know that there is something to be said about re-examining how it is used. It's not a rule that it should not or should. It's how to come to an agreement and an effective use of it. And if a client wants that, some things are personal to a client and they want to see it, then I would advise that if you're getting that type of feedback, then perhaps you want to consult with a designer for a reworking of that logo.
Okay, and that is why, as you alluded to earlier, it's always best to get a professional designer that really understands how to interpret what you want to communicate from your brand to the public. So,
right, and also it's also about the technical aspects of it. If you reduce it to 1 inch to put it on a pen or a button, can it read? Is the words in the logo and the image working together to a point where it can be reproduced, reduced to 1 inch, make as big as a billboard? These are the technical aspects that we bring into the process. Now, we need the client to come up with a good logo. We need the client's input, that is. But the client also has to be open to what we are saying about the technical aspects of it that they may not have thought about before. Reproduction, the cost of having too many colors, because some printers use offset printing, which would mean that you would be paying for each color. And each time you produce that or reproduce that, you'll be paying over and over again. You don't want that. You want to keep it minimal, you want to keep it effective, and you want to keep it in a way that is easily read and identifiable.
okay, thank you so much for that, because I'm sure that persons did not understand the intricacies that are involved in just designing a logo. Harris Michelle Barrett Powell is asking, what is the cost to register a logo with JIPO? Are you aware of what their costs are?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure of the cost. I'm not sure of the dollar amount. But the JIPO office is, I'm sure will tell you, Jamaica Intellectual Property Office. If you do a search for their website, JIPO or Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, they will have the costs listed there. And of course, numbers that you contact. So sorry, I can't give you the costs from my position here now, but give them a call and they will let you know that.
Right. All right, so are there any more questions? I'm not seeing any more questions just yet. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and either type them or click on the icon indicating that you want to raise your hand to ask a question. So Jason, as you pointed out before, areas like the color that people will utilize for the logo, as well as the wording that may be there as well. Stuff like that is very important towards coming up with a professional and well executed logo, because that is the first thing that customers will see or align with your brand.
That's correct. Colors are cultural, as I said earlier. Everybody know that brand Jamaica is identified by the colors of the flag. Right. Black, green and gold becomes almost synonymous with brand Jamaica. However, all products in Jamaica can't be national colors or nationalistic in its presentation. So there are other ways to convey aspects of Jamaica, not just the primary national symbolism, but there are other aspects of Jamaica that can be associated. The tropics, warm Caribbean colors, for example, will bring that idea of warm ocean waters and vibrant culture. Reds, oranges, for vibrancy, sunshine, can also be incorporated in that concept. So yes, color is something to consider, and along with the fact that the clientele or the target group that you're trying to target, it's their activity and use of the product that is going to bring the right choice in color. Are they conservative? Are they young? Are they people who are active and energetic? Then these are the type of things you want to think about.
And of course, there are different meanings that are aligned with the colors. So if you want to communicate that your brand is maybe organic or natural or something of the earth, there are certain colors that could be useful towards communicating that very clearly to your customers when they may be looking at it on the shelves in the market, because they align certain colors with certain feelings as well.
That's right. And food colors are green, orange, yellow. Research has shown that these colors, because of the nature of fresh produce and fruits and vegetables, is the colors that activate appetite. And you may not recognize it, but some of these colors, after having eaten enough KFC, the smell alone perhaps will pull you to one of the stores, but also the branding, that red, after passing it in traffic, does help to sear that idea in your mind, that and to stimulate your feelings about appetite. Yeah. You may not know this, but a lot of research is put into these things, and even on supermarket floors, colors are used on shelves, on the paint that they use for the supermarket itself, and on the inside and placement of the goods. All of these ideas, including color, is considered to have a psychological effect on the buying public. So next time you go to the supermarket or engage any public facility, consider this. It'll be interesting to see just how influenced you have been so far without even knowing.
Right. And also, I just want to highlight as well that in one of our webinars that we have done before, we actually looked at the label as well. And the logo more or less will be included on a label, and we covered some of the pertinent points that should be included on a label once it is being designed. And that service also can be accessed from the JBDC through our visual communications unit.
Yes, the logo, I said before, we design a logo, but a logo doesn't stand on its own. It is going to be applied to a business card, letterheads, collateral materials, banners, posters, billboards. It's going to appear in media. As well as when one has to consider the nature of their product. Swing tags, for example, if you're doing clothing, if you're doing food, if you're doing arts and craft, all of these formats and presentations should be branded and can be branded.
Okay. All right. So does anybody else have any more questions? I'm not seeing any more questions right now, Jason.
Okay.
However, in the meantime, I just want to thank you very much for a very provocative presentation. And I'm certain many of us were not aware of the potency of a logo. And what we have received today in terms of the presentation that you have done would have provided us with a lot more clarity as to what we need to consider and explore, and to also help us in understanding why it's important to get a professional person to help us to design things like our labels and our logos, because it's not just about what we want, but we also have to consider carefully what we are communicating to our customers. In the marketplace is very competitive, and we want to ensure that we always stand out for the right things at all times when they're on the shelves, and we're not necessarily there to communicate about our brand. The label, the swing tags, or the other things that you mentioned as well, Jason, all of those help to communicate, especially with your brand logo. They will eventually associate either good or bad with your logo going forward. So Jason, we really want to thank you for that. Okay, Leon Lemonius is asking, please explain export-ready labeling and logo copyright.
Export-ready labeling.
Mm-hmm.
Local producers oftentimes want to send away items or have found a market overseas. Export-ready would mean that you have identified your retailer or your contact person abroad, and the requirements in that country, Canada, United States, England, for example, would have specifications according to their branding and labeling laws and bylaws. Export ready would mean that it is in keeping with the market that you're sending to. So the branding and labeling would include, in some countries, dual languages. For example, Canada may want French as well. Some parts of the United States, Florida, may want Spanish. These countries are diverse cultured, and they want somebody who perhaps doesn't speak English so well can be able to read the items. Packaging also should consider the nature of the product, whether or not it's a perishable. Is it sturdy enough to be transported? And if so, the transport of that will not result in any damaging to the package, and so on and so forth. And the second half, again, Dana, the second half of the question.
Okay, he said logo copyright. Please explain export-ready labeling and logo copyright. So I guess you want some more clarity on how you can copyright your logo.
Copywriting a logo after designing it in Jamaica is the responsibility of Jamaica Intellectual Property Office, as JIPO. JIPO allows a certificate to legitimize your logo and to protect it through copyright, registered trademark, and intellectual property rights. Those are three categories through which you can protect a logo. However, unfortunately, that protection does not span overseas. JIPO has for many years been trying to get the seal of approval from the governing bodies abroad, for example, European Union. England has its own, United States has its own. Unfortunately, we have not been able to yet legitimize our Copyright Act to be international. However, there are clients, in my experience, who have registered that same logo while being abroad, paying for its copyright and protection under the country to which they want to conduct business, which they also retain the Jamaican copyright, but also which the United States does not acknowledge, unfortunately, but their Copyright Act works in the United States and some parts of Europe. In Britain, the Copyright Act there, if you get your logo registered, if you get your registered trademark copywritten there, can be used internationally, including Canada, United States, England, Europe. So it's just a matter of understanding if you have a market there and the investment need to be made, it's best to take that logo to that country. If it requires prerequisite qualifications, for example, are those countries willing to give you if you're not a citizen? Can you register it nonetheless? Are all things that you'd have to research in the individual country that you're exporting to.
Okay, all right. Just to follow up on that, there is another question before that, but I am just following up since we're on the topic of copyright. Vanessa Powell is asking, does the copyright cover CARICOM, the one done by JIPO, that is?
It is. CARICOM states do accept Jamaican copyright, and that would include Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and those who are in the CARICOM, are members of CARICOM, do recognize Jamaican copyright.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Jason. I see where Tanya Collins is asking if she will be able to access a recording of this meeting. And yes, the webinars are generally posted to our YouTube page, so you may view this webinar or any of our previous webinars on our YouTube page, JBDC Jamaica. So you can head on over there, click on our page, like and subscribe to our page, and click on the notification bell so that you will be alerted about any of our new content. So you can definitely view this webinar later on via our YouTube page, JBDC Jamaica. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. I'm about to wrap up if I don't see any more within the next minute or so. So, okay, Leon Nemonius is asking, how do I get in touch with a credible brand designer? Leon Nemonius, you don't have to look any further than the JBDC.
Right here.
Because our visual communications unit does provide services such as designing for your brand. And you can go ahead and expound on that, Jason.
As I said before, you simply set up an appointment. That appointment, telephone contact or first contact can be made. And then if you want to have online a meeting or just talk briefly about what it is that you want and the services we offer. And then eventually that would lead to a person-to-person consultation that I mentioned earlier, that you would bring your ideas and prototypes for us to discuss what you want. We design at $1,900 an hour. Those rates are not clocked because we kept those rates. For example, maybe we said three hours for a business card. Maybe we'll say 6 hours for a logo. They're competitive rates. We don't operate at market rate, which means if you go to an advertising agency, you'll be charged a lot more. So let me say first that we cater to small business people and people who are looking for solutions within a budget. That's our primary focus, to stimulate small business growth. That has been our mandate from day one. So it is important to bring your ideas on any prototype or product that you may have, so we can discuss it and see how we can brand it. The technical services team is at 76 Marcus Garvey Drive, Garmex Free Zone. That's 76 Marcus Garvey Drive, Garmex Free Zone, Unit 10A. And is just to contact and make a contact. And our numbers are, all the numbers are listed on the website, www.jbdc.net. And to make an appointment to see a designer. We have qualified designers, all of which went to art school and is proficiently trained in technical design and graphic arts. So you'll be well taken care of.
Okay, Jason, Leon Pneumonius is also asking, does the DBJ voucher cover the cost?
The DBJ voucher. I've done a few of those myself. The DBJ would have the DBJ has listings. The vouchers may cover branding. It may cover product development. What we're looking for is a branding of a DBJ voucher that was awarded for branding. Now, I think that voucher can go all the way up to $120,000 or less. It depends on what you negotiated with the DBJ officer. And we are listed as service providers accordingly. Now, what we'll do is try to do a comprehensive assessment of what it is you need in terms of what the voucher can cover. And we'll try to fit that budget or fit in it those design elements and aspects of our services that will cover that. So yes, we take DBJ vouchers. It's just that the voucher has to be under branding if you're coming here for branding. It can't be given for market research and then we use it for branding. So you have to make sure that if it's branding you need, then have the DBJ officer assign the voucher accordingly.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Jason. Chandris Foster, we touched on this earlier, but I guess Chandris Foster wants some more clarity as to whether or not, in light of COVID, will the communication be more virtual? So I guess you want some more clarity as to how the communication occurs right now during this season.
All right. The real concern, and it is a valid one, is that virtual interviews, even though it's the new norm, has always existed before now, our clientele, or the majority of our clientele, tend to come in, or what we call walk-in clients. However, we are able to conduct, and it is permissible by JBDC for us to conduct online interviews using mediums through which individuals may have. I myself have conducted interviews by choice between an understanding between myself and the client, even through FaceTime. If the client is out of town, if the client simply does not want to come in and would rather get an understanding or feeling of what it is we offer before coming. Notwithstanding, there's a point at which you have to come in when the product development becomes tangible. However, again, it's the communication and decision between yourself and the officer as to what medium you want to use. If we share the same medium, Zoom, FaceTime, and to some extent, WhatsApp. We don't use WhatsApp communication as formal evidence of communication. But if you want to convey information to the officer that you're working with in real time or in quick time, then that is also an option. But we legitimately would like you to back that up with if you're giving approval or giving us instructions, then it's also to send an email, tangible evidence that these things were asked for and that we can have them at our fingertips to respond to your needs.
Okay, all right, thank you very much, Jason. Fitzroy Ferguson is asking, is it okay to truncate parts of your logo as the need arises? So my logo is 2 words. Can I leave off part of it sometimes and not lose connection with the original logo? He also asks, well, he said his logo is Jaldon Enterprises. Is it okay to just use the Jaldon part of the logo in some applications?
It is. It is the agreement of the business owner. As I said before, if you have a registered business, if it's registered with the registrar of companies, then Jaldon Enterprise. Jaldon.
Right.
Enterprises will be the listed company registered. However, that will become the mother company. Now, the enterprises can be dropped off if you are going to brand, because the mother company can use a subsidiary brand, which doesn't exactly need to include all of the name. And by subsidiary brand, I mean if the head company or mother company is producing products, you can have several subsidiary brands, which means you have several products that you brand individually or together or as groupings. Then the logo name, I would advise even say yes. It will be wise sometimes to leave off those other parts, like limited liability. It depends on the format in which you use it. Of course, if it appears as information on a product, for example, the technical information, where you're located, contact information, then you want to put the enterprise or the mother company's full established name on in the small print. However, in branding, you have the right to break it up. It's your decision as a business owner if it can be used as a tool or if the separation of those words will lead to a more effective process of branding for your subsidiary products.
Okay, he thanks you, Jason, for your input. And we received some thank yous earlier as well from Tanya Collins, as well as Fitzroy Ferguson, and one of our other participants as well who had asked questions. They really thank you for your response.
You're very welcome, and thank you too for joining us. I hope I was able to, through some of my nervousness, be able to convey all that you would have needed in that presentation. And look forward to hearing from you. I'm here, Jason Delevante. I'm at the 76 Marcus Garvey Drive, Garmex Free Zone, Unit 10A. I'm at the Incubator and Resource Center, that's the IRC office. Give me a call. We can talk.
Okay, all right, and Chandris Foster is asking for the numbers again, but I will definitely, okay, you can contact Jason, especially if you want, at jdelevante@jbdc.net, and the number for Technical Services Department, which houses our Visual Communications Unit, which Jason is a part of. The number for that is 876-758-39668. So that's 876-758-39668. As well, you can always contact the JBDC generally at 876-928-5161-5 or via email at info@jbdc.net. Also, if you have any queries or you want to follow up on any additional information, you can check out any of our social media pages via Facebook or Instagram. And as Jason said, we do have a website as well, so you can check out our website at www.jbdc.net. So there are numerous mediums that you can actually contact us, and you can access certain information or consultations regarding the services that you need. Okay, it's Delevante, so it's DELEVANTE. And the numbers again are 758-3966-8. So that's 758-3966-8. So you can contact our Technical Services Department and ask to speak to a Visual Communications Officer or any one of our other officers to get support. Okay, I'll definitely type that shortly.
Okay.
Okay, so you can get in contact with Jason to get additional information. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions, so I will just wrap up then. I really want to thank everyone for being here today and for participating in our webinar. I know it was very useful to you based on the questions that you asked, and I can see we're going forward. Okay, Eileen Donkey has said, great presentation, Jason. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Eileen. That's encouraging to hear.
Right. So I can see we're going forward. We can definitely utilize this to assist other persons in identifying how they can go about establishing their logo and making sure that it is communicating the right message. Jason Chandris Foster has also said, excellent presentation. And Tanya Collins has said, thanks for providing us with this opportunity to gain such information. Paris Michelle Burnett Powell has said, great presentation, thank you. Tanya Collins has said, well done. And Vanessa Powell has said, this was awesome. So we really want to thank everyone for their feedback. We definitely appreciate it. And we encourage you to go and visit this webinar, take a look at it again on our YouTube page, and visit any of our previous webinars to be able to, you know, let some of that information soak in a little bit more going forward. And next week, we will be looking at my fingerprint designing your collection. So please do not hesitate to join us next week and participate in that webinar as well. So that is my fingerprint designing your collection. So
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. And please be safe and take care of yourselves until next week.
Until next time.
Until we see you again. So thank you all.